And for more on the apparent terrorist attack in New Orleans, we invite Kervin Aucoin, a former counterterrorism analyst for the U.S. Army. Kervin, we invite you on the show today to talk about the at least 15 people who were killed in New Orleans and to address the big question, were there any national security lapses surrounding this incident? The suspect served in the Army for about 13 years. Deployed to Afghanistan in 2009, he had an ISIS flag on his truck. Does the government have any mechanisms for detecting any potential radicalization of those who served? And could that have been more use here?
Yeah, Kevin, thank you so much for having me on. It's so tough in such a tragic time, and it's something that hits close to home for me, somebody that's from the New Orleans area that still has friends and family in New Orleans. So my heart goes out to everybody that's there. But as you said, yes, this is by all accounts a terrorist act. It appears that this individual was radicalized, maybe not specifically by ISIS, but he had become radicalized after spending 15 years in the military, after going to Afghanistan. And what there is a lapse in the U.S. national security. The mechanisms in place to identify these people, it's all changing. You know, the technology is changing, the world is changing, and U.S. national security needs to keep up with that. And by all accounts, there are individuals within the FBI and various other three-letter agencies that are tapped to identify these things and people like this. But what this looks like is, if it's true that there were more people involved, it looks as if this individual had been radicalized for whatever reason, whether it was his own finances or the talk on social media about the global war on terrorism and how the U.S. government is treating veterans and soldiers after the global war on terrorism. But it looks like what's more interesting is that there are more people that could be involved, and those people tapped this individual to carry out this specific attack to cause this amount of damage. And what that means is there are other people out there, and the FBI needs to do their job and go out and find these individuals and be 100% honest with the U.S. population of what they're doing and how they're tracking these people down and how they're going to bring them to justice.
Very interesting, Kervin. And federal officials are still searching for a motive in this case and trying to determine whether or not Jabbar, the suspect, allegedly acted alone or had accomplices. And the Louisiana Attorney General, after they said that they found the improvised explosive devices in the truck, says that those were manufactured in an Airbnb, specifically rented out for that purpose. Now, the mayor of New Orleans says that this was an intentional terrorist attack, and the police chief said that it's not a DUI situation. It was more complex and serious. Can you explain how terrorists typically operate in similar cases?
Yeah, look, this is something that's been happening recently. You've got, and it's not just Islamic extremists. We have white supremacists who drove a van into a counter protest in Charlottesville. You've got the attacks. So it's not just the United States either. You have the attacks on Christmas in Germany, and now you have this, and they're using vehicles. Why are you using vehicles? Well, you know, a vehicle is not going to get stopped. You're not going to be stopped just because you have a vehicle. You know, if you have a weapon, if you have munitions, that's going to pique the interest of law enforcement. But a Ford F-150 driving around Canal Street, it's not going to pique the interest of too many in the area. And so that's why terrorists are using this. And it's becoming clear that he used an application, not just Airbnb, but he also used an application, Turo, which is similar to Airbnb. Turo is a vehicle renting application. So it's kind of like Uber and Airbnb had a baby and created a vehicle renting mechanism. So we used that in order to rent the vehicle. And part of that is because you can't track anymore. So he's got the vehicle. He can use a email address that's maybe not associated with him. You can show your license to the individual you're renting from when you get to the location with the vehicle. So the mechanisms in place to identify somebody who's been radicalized that would purchase the vehicle is lessened. So you've got accessibility and you've got opportunity. And then the time that this happened at 3:15 in the morning as New Orleans is preparing for the Sugar Bowl. There are mechanisms in place for the Super Bowl that they're trying to ramp up security. And so they've removed security mechanisms from areas like Bourbon Street in order to improve and upgrade them in anticipation for the Super Bowl and for Mardi Gras. So it's very interesting that they took, New Year's Eve to New Year's Day, because that's typically not a time in New Orleans that's famously known for revelry. It is the Sugar Bowl, the Super Bowl, and Mardi Gras. That would have caused a lot more damage. So this is very much, to me, like a probing event for a much larger terrorist attack that could happen in a much larger city. Look, he drove from Houston to New Orleans. Houston is by far a much larger city. They have over 2 million more people than New Orleans. And then at 3:15, while there are a lot of people out and about on Bourbon Street, it isn't the busiest time for that location.
Well, thank you for shedding light on this very important topic. Kervin Aucoin, former counterterrorism analyst for the U.S. Army.
Thank you for having me. You guys have a great day.